Hey guys, Ron here. Oh, let me get out of the shade. Welcome everybody to another edition. So today I'm out right across the street. Actually, that's the building right there. I'm in front of the building or across from the building here in Brentwood that belonged to where Ron Goldman lived. I believe the top floor, right hand side, which would be, yes, I believe the top floor would be where his apartment was, but I don't know that 100% sure. Anyway, you can see that it's a very modest apartment building. It looks like it's just like maybe 10 units here in Brentwood. And I'll show you the rest of the street is all apartments. It's a lot of UCLA students live here. Back this way. So what's interesting is, we all know the story of on the apartment again. We all know the story about what supposedly happened on the night of June 12th, 1994. That Ron Goldman was the waiter, who was also an acquaintance or a friend of Nicole Brown, or Nicole Brown Simpson, and that he was called after Nicole's party left, that her mother Juditha had left sunglasses or eyeglasses, which were actually found out by the curb. I mean, there really were glasses there, and Goldman said he would come over later and deliver them. One thing, I don't believe Goldman had a car, so you guys can do the research for me. Obviously, that was long before Uber, and I don't know how he was going to get there. Maybe borrow a friend's car. I think, though, they were going, he and his friends later that night were supposed to go to a bar in Marina del Rey, Mexican restaurant and bar. Unfortunately, obviously, he never made it. So there are curious elements to this as well. Now, I've done a couple of vlogs on, go over there for a minute. I've done a couple of vlogs on, this is about my third or fourth one on the OJ case, because it's obviously of great interest to me. I've also done the area here out on San Vicente, which is right behind me, about where Nicole spent her last days, her last night, I should say, after the recital at Paul Revere Middle School, after Mezzaluna Restaurant, after going for ice cream and then bringing the kids home. So, it's a very interesting thing. I believe that was the apartment up there on top. So, what happened here? There are some interesting stories because it is rumored, again, I'm like you guys, I just read what you read. I don't have any personal knowledge of this, but it is rumored that Mezzaluna Restaurant here in Brentwood, which used to be here, which closed up, was a hotbed for drug trafficking. Not just small time, but like big time. Again, everything I say here is rumor and conjecture. So the rumor was that it was a hotbed for drug trafficking, especially in the mid-90s. And in the mid-90s, unfortunately, Ron Goldman is not the only employee or former employee who met a dastardly fate. Two other former waiters were killed, and one had his car set on fire. And then there's the case of Michael Nigg. Now, Michael Nigg was a waiter at Mezzaluna. He was a friend. That UPS truck is going crazy honking up there. Michael Nigg was a waiter at Mezzaluna. He actually left working at Mezzaluna just before the murders took place. But he was a waiter at Mezzaluna. He was friends with Ron Goldman. They used to hang out together. And Michael Nigg was an interesting character. He was in his mid-20s, I believe. And apparently he had also worked, I think, for the Mezzaluna in Colorado and Denver, which was also suspected of being a drug trafficking hangout or place. Anyway, Michael Nigg lived way beyond his means. Even after he left Mezzaluna, he drove a Mercedes. He lived in a nice place. And about a little over a year, about 15 months after the OJ murders, after Ron Goldman, his friend, was killed, he was at an ATM in Hollywood. He got out to use the ATM. His girlfriend was still in the car. Supposedly a couple guys approached him, asked him for money, and Michael would not give them the money, and they killed him. Now, they found two suspects. I don't know if they even took the money, but they did find two suspects, and they did bring them in, but they found there was insufficient evidence, even though they have cameras, which is odd, insufficient evidence to keep them. And so that was it. The case is unsolved, but it's just another one of the weird connections to Mezzaluna and to the friends of Ron Goldman. Now, Ron Goldman's stepmother, Patty Glass, or Patty Glass Goldman, I guess now, she is divorced from a notorious drug dealer, like drug trafficker, hitman, I believe, you name it. So she has a dubious past as well. So, and we know that O.J. Simpson was using drugs. I don't know whether he had a drug dealer per se. I don't know how that game works because I'm not a drug person. I don't know whether he had to have a dealer. But the theory that O.J. puts out and that his ex-manager now puts out is that their theory, you know, deflecting from the O.J. thing, I mean, is that, in front of the apartment again? Yeah. Is that, and I've discussed this theory before, is that O.J. was paying for everything for Nicole. I don't know about everything, but after the divorce, he was still paying quite a bit of things for Nicole, including for her drugs and drug deals. There's even a theory that she was looking to start a restaurant of her own with cocaine money, with profits from cocaine sales. But that the theory, the latest theory is, like I say, it's really not the latest, been around for a while, is that O.J. was paying for all these things for Nicole, including paying off her drug dealers, and that one of the reasons he was so furious with her is that she had these drug dealers coming to the home when the children were there, the condo on Bundy, where she was ultimately killed, and Goldman was killed. Now, supposedly she had a book of these dealers, and that O.J. really wanted that list of dealers because this alternate theory is that not only was O.J. paying off these drug dealers, and the only reason he was paying supposedly for Nicole's drugs is that Nicole had those pictures filed away in a safe deposit box of her being injured purportedly by O.J. in domestic violence, and I believe it was probably the New Year's Eve 1989 ones where the cops came out and she ran into their arms on the driveway. Reportedly, she ran into Mark Furman's arms as the responding officer, which is kind of odd if I have my facts correct. But anyway, that she was using those pictures as leverage over O.J. Basically, if you don't pay and you don't pay things for me, I'm going to release those, and that's it for your career and your endorsements and so on and so forth. And you know, it would have been actually too. So maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe she was blackmailing him with those photos. But the other side of the coin is that Nicole always said to her friends, according to her friends, those photos that she was hiding were the only card she had to play. She said, if anything happens to me, O.J. is going to quote unquote O.J. his way out of it and show them these photos to prove that he was, you know, was beating me at times. So anyway, I find it very, very fascinating. Actually, a friend of mine, well, not a friend of a friend of mine knew Ron Goldman's sister, Kim, and kind of knew the crowd of girls that she would hang out with in the 90s and 2000s, her little crew of friends. And this friend of a friend of mine first told me about Patty Glass and her ex-husband, the drug kingpin. I mean, I should have just looked it up because it's common knowledge. It's out there. So that, plus a couple of other waiters that had unfortunate ends, including Michael Nigg, which of course could be a random robbery. It doesn't have to be connected to drugs. But if we look at the fact that Nicole was doing drugs, probably, most likely, supposedly yes. We know that her best friend went to rehab. Actually, I believe was in rehab that weekend at Promises Malibu, who also wrote a book afterwards. So it's likely that she was using drugs. O.J. was using drugs. Cocaine gets very expensive. We don't know what was happening at Mezzaluna. I have a friend who's worked in the restaurant business for almost over 30 years, and I have asked him about, you know, certain restaurants, and he's not a drug person. He's not involved in that. He wouldn't know it if he saw it, you know, what was going on. But I know that these things do go on. There's a shady underworld that exists in many businesses. So anyway, my point is, was Mezzaluna trafficking drugs? Was it just some of the wait staff that was trafficking drugs? Who knows? Or was Goldman involved? Was Michael Nigg involved? Or other people? Actually, Michael Nigg was involved, was suspected by the police. I believe there's an investigation when he's working for Mezzaluna in Colorado regarding drug trafficking. So, and the other suspicion was, like I said, on his waiter salary, he should not have been able to afford that Mercedes, and the other, they said he was living way beyond his means. So it looks like, at least with Michael Nigg, there was probably something shady at some point. Poor Ron Goldman, we don't know. Well, poor both of them, because they both ended up getting murdered. So we just don't know. But anyway, folks, there's some theories, and there's Goldman's apartment. By the way, if anybody knows how he got over to and parked on Dorothy Street, did he borrow a car that night? Did he get a car by that time? I'm really unsure. Let me know in the comments, and if you have any other comments or opinions on any of these other theories concerning Mezzaluna and or drug trafficking, let me know. I mean, you know, when they found the other point that I want to end on is that supposedly the bathtub was ready for use in Nicole's place that night that Goldman was coming over, and candles were out. All I know is I've read all the books, and her friends say that was her seduction technique: candles, bathtub. So, you know, were her and Goldman already physically involved? Maybe. Did she want to? Maybe. Were they going to get possibly involved that night while the kids were asleep? Maybe. Was OJ following, or did OJ have someone else, as I discussed in another vlog? Was OJ and other people following Nicole, you know, to see what she was up to, her every move? Did he know or suspect Goldman or someone else was coming by that night? You know, did OJ figure, I'll bring a knife and I'll scare the hell out of her, and then I'll hop on my plane, or then, you know, and there'll be an alibi for me? Or do more than scare her? Will I scare her and get the book that he was looking for, the list of drug dealers? Will he get that and then leave and get on the plane? Who knows? I just suspect there's more to the little case, the tight case that the prosecutors make. I know there's more to the Manson murders, much more than the prosecutors made of it. But, you know, when you want to get a conviction of everybody, you do what you think is the most logical explanation. Actually, it didn't work in the OJ case because he was acquitted, but I still think that drugs were involved in some way. Drugs are usually involved when there's a murder, either using, selling, but you know, drugs kind of go hand in hand with crime and the criminal element, not necessarily that particular crime itself, but the criminal element. All right, guys, that's my super sleuth opinions here from Brentwood, California. Now I'll leave it to you, and I'll say, Ron here, signing off. Thanks for watching and listening. Thanks for subscribing to those of you who have subscribed. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. And if you do so, hit the little bell icon next to the subscription button so you're notified as to when I post. And please give the channel likes, folks. That's what moves it along. Okay, thanks very much. We're going to pass these little dogs. Hi, cutie. Hi, you want to stop in the shade? Yeah, I see that. I was distracting the dog. Okay, folks. So I'll be seeing you at the next location real soon. Bye-bye.